So before I get going, I wanted to apologize for any potential redundancies. Chris and Ned both touched on subjects that I'm going to touch on very heavily, including things like shopping cart abandonment. And obviously what we're going to be talking about today is email marketing. So before I get going, I have a story. I promise it has a point. Back in 2007, I started at Listrak. I was much younger, and you might say, Mark, you look like you're 17 years old now. How much younger could you possibly have been? So I was 25 years old, brand new intern at Listrak, and I was so excited to tell people what Listrak did because I was excited about it. So a lot of conversations, we've all had these a million times. You bump into someone at a bar or a party or a networking event, you know, what do you do? What do you do? When folks would ask me, I would say, oh, I'm in email marketing. And invariably, the response I would get every time is, oh, so you spam people. That was pretty much the response 100% of the time. And I was like, no, it's much more than that. It's really cool. And when I started talking about the business intelligence behind all of this, they said, oh, you're Big Brother. So I don't know if that was worse or if that was better, but inevitably, I realized I had to change my elevator pitch. And nowadays, the story is more like we help retailers deliver relevant content to their audience in a relevant time. Very similar to what eDialogue, eBay's version of an ESP, is doing. Very similar to what MailChimp and those guys are trying to accomplish. So we've recently partnered with UPS in the last year, I'd say, and they came to us because they have a lot of great solutions, things like My Choice and the solutions to logistically help deliver packages, which is great. That's completely necessary, obviously, if not the most necessary thing when you think about being a retailer. But they didn't necessarily have any solutions to help their customers grow, to help their customers increase conversions and ship more packages. So they began to partner with companies like Listrak, additionally NetElixir, who does some good SEO work, also some social marketing companies. All these companies are designed to increase conversions on the internet, and obviously everyone benefits in that regard. The retailer ships more packages and acquires more customers. UPS gets more boxes on brown trucks, and Listrak and NetElixir all gain customers. So at our core, Listrak is an email marketing company, right? We're helping you get an email out, just like I heard MailChimp mentioned earlier, just like in eDialogue. You're able to go in there every day and send a newsletter out. What we know is that's just not enough anymore. Customers are expecting hyper-relevant content at all times of the day, and I think email has been kind of a lost medium because there are so many cool things nowadays between Pinterest and, all the social platforms and so forth. However, show of hands, who's checked their email since they've been in this presentation today? Yes. However, who has seen a banner ad on a website today? Yeah. So we know that email is the most prevalent way to reach folks. It's always going to be the highest ROI advertising you can possibly do. And Kathy mentioned earlier 10 to 1. Ned put up some great metrics, 19, 20 to 1. We have clients today, 60, 70, even one that's 100 to 1. So for every dollar they give Listrak, we're giving them back $100. I would never guarantee that to a potential new client. You have to have a pretty dialed-in strategy to achieve those kind of results. A bit about Listrak. So founded in 1999, our CEO founded the company's dorm room at a college that has come up repeatedly today. I'm sure you guys can guess where it was.
Penn State.
Penn State, indeed. So he's a Nittany Lion, founded in 99. His father gave him the initial $25,000 to start the company. They are still the co-owners of the company, 50-50 owners. We're growing about 60 to 70% year over year on our own. Our last true competitor was just acquired by NetSuite, so we're really the last kind of enterprise email marketing offering in the space that hasn't yet been acquired. Offices, main office in Lidditz, PA. Any folks familiar with Lidditz in here?
Yeah.
There we go. America's Coolest Small Town, 2013. As I found out the other night, it's about 330 miles southeast of here. We also have another office in Los Angeles and one further in Australia. The obligatory customer slide, you see Zippo down there at the bottom, but some other folks we work with today. So some of the goals we talked about, I know eBay has a very, very enterprise offering. The clients they put up there, you talk about 50, 100, $200 million retailers, which is great. Listrak prefers to work with emerging mid-sized brands. That's not to say we're ever going to turn down business from Coca-Cola if they come calling, but candidly, $2 to $10 million retailers, that's kind of our sweet spot. So typically, folks in that space are using platforms like MailChimp, Constant Contact, iContact, kind of a one-size-fits-all newsletter approach. They might have a list of 30,000 people. Everyone's getting the same message, right? And they come to Listrak and they say, how do we move the needle? We're sending these newsletters out, but there's not much engagement. Our open rates are slipping. We can't really track conversions. We can't really, gauge the success or lack thereof in these campaigns. So what we help them do at a very high level, acquire more new customers and sell more to their existing ones. So does that sound great to everyone that sells to retailer in here? That is the name of the game. And how we do that is to improve personalization, supplement those bi-weekly or weekly newsletter sends with automation, and increase relevancy with segmentation like Chris mentioned earlier. So a use case I was going to go through today is urbanog.com. This was the very first company that UPS introduced us to. They're a fast fashion brand out of Los Angeles. They were what they call a churn account. UPS has a lot of great terms to describe their accounts. Churn accounts being folks that are down shipping year over year. So when UPS came to us, we have about 16 retail-specific solutions, things like a proprietary recommendations platform, automated latent marketing, like Chris mentioned earlier, shopping cart abandonment. And they're like, you guys are crazy if you think we're going to be trying to sell 16 solutions into these clients. You need to distill this offering down to what makes the most sense for a $1 million retailer to a $200 million retailer. Tell us what works the best and what works the fastest. So what we did is distill the offering down to 4 solutions. And this was a point of contention earlier, but everyone's favorite, Modal Lightbox acquisition. So what this displays here, the 8,000 subscribers, they were coming in through new order events. So that was 8,000 people a month coming in through checkout. Obviously, we're always going to prompt people for the email address on checkout. The 819, those were folks in the footer subscribe way down there. We touched on that earlier. So we suggested to implement a Modal pop-up, very good way to attract a new audience. The first month, 20,000 folks subscribed through that Modal pop-up. So I know that, Mitch, you mentioned earlier, I hate these stupid things. As soon as I see it, I bounce off the site. Like, I don't think anyone's ever gone to a site and got one of these and been like, yes, thank God this interrupted my shopping experience. What we know as marketers is, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, they work and they work extremely well. Now, list growth is one thing, but as we start talking more enterprise initiatives like consuming browse data, understanding add to cart events. So if I come to this Modal and I give you my email address in January, I come back in March and put an item in the cart, I don't even have to enter the cart checkout process and give you my email address. You already know who I am because I was cookied from that January subscribe. So Chris mentioned earlier the conversion rate for his cart abandonment emails, 20% or so. Imagine if you could reach twice that many people and the conversion rate stayed the same. Obviously, it's going to lead to more transactions, more conversions at the end of the day. And on the subject of browse data, you come to the site, you're browsing sundresses. This is a fast fashion brand. So sundresses, you've never given your email address to this website, but we're building up this profile on you on the back end. So as soon as you give us that email address, we marry up that historical data. We already understand your interests. Maybe the first message that gets to you has some content relevant to what you were browsing before you gave us your email address. Here is some good metrics on that. The 15% unique visitors email address capture rate I think is important. There was a question earlier on metrics on how frequently people opt in to the newsletter list. If they were to have their subscription point at the top, or the header as we call it, we typically see about 0.5% of site traffic opt in that way. When it's on the bottom, we see that it's about 0.1%. When we implement a Modal pop-up, it's generally between 5 and 8%. So everyone in here is paying a lot of money for SEO and PPC. That traffic inherently, as we know, has little value, unless they start buying and start identifying themselves. So we can prompt and nurture them towards their first purchase. And that is exactly what the Modal pop-up is going to help do. Now the next solution of the 4 that made the most sense was a welcome series. So you cannot have acquisition without engagement. So what we know is that the peak engagement with your brands is actually when someone gives you their email address. It's not after their first purchase. It's not, after they visit the site X amount of times. It's when they give you their email address. I'm sure no one here signed up or woke up this morning and decided that they were just going to sign up for 20 newsletters because they just felt like doing that. When you go to a website and enter your email address, it's because you want to hear from this brand. So the worst thing that a retailer can do when they get an email address is nothing. If you give your email address and get crickets in response, what is that supposed to tell a consumer? These guys don't really care that I gave them my email address. Well, we kind of alleviate that pain with what we call a welcome series. It's an extremely simple strategy, but one that's incredibly valuable. You see the conversion rate there, 12%. So average newsletter sends conversion rates are anywhere between 1% and 3%. So this is a very engaged with email. Open rates on these, 60 to 70%. So imagine 7 out of 10 people that get this email are opening it and engaging with it. And that allows a lot of extra packages for UPS to ship, a lot of extra conversions for Urban OG at the end of the day. This is what their previous welcome message looked like. I know MailChimp has their way of doing it. It's kind of a templated, you're on the list. That's it. I'm sure you can guess which of these options were engaged with more and which drove more revenue. That message on the left did not drive $27,000 a month. I can promise you that. And here we get to shopping cart abandonment. So Chris hit the nail on the head earlier. Not a big fan of the term low-hanging fruit. It's a very tired term, but if you want to talk the lowest hanging fruit in your email channel, 1 and 2 is going to be a welcome series and shopping cart abandonment. So the COM score, Don was nice enough to mention earlier, 57% of people abandon because they're comparison shopping. What we know is the total number is 75% of the time that someone puts an item in the cart, they do not complete that purchase. Now that could be the baby starts crying, the dog got out, the pot boiled over on the stove. It could be map pricing, in electronics when you have to put an item in the cart to see the price. Any number of factors, but there's a huge opportunity there to re-engage that audience and convert a certain percentage of them. A lot of our customers use a discount ladder. Maybe the first message has no discount, it's just a reminder. Usually the second message is like 5% off, third message 10% off, but that's something that we can happily test and see what makes the most sense for your customer base. Measuring this stuff is incredibly important too. So these blue bars are the total abandoned or total reachable, that is. These are folks that we knew that abandoned. Orange is what we actually recovered. And if anyone really wanted to have a headache, you could actually overlay the total abandoned dollars, but it would make you physically sick. The green bar would be like off the screen and you'd be like, holy hell, people are abandoning $1 million on a monthly basis on my site. But I promise it's something that happens across furniture, apparel, electronics, everywhere. Fourth and final solution that makes the most sense, and this can be accomplished by a lot of different platforms, it's essentially the business intelligence that goes into your marketing list. So segmentation, Chris hit the nail on the head. If you're talking to everyone the exact same, then you're not cutting through the noise of the inbox. Someone said earlier, oh, I just give my email address I never look at when I sign up for these lists. And that's because people get so beaten down by just templated generic newsletters that they're getting all day. I'm a 29-year-old man. I shop on sites that also cater to women. When they send out a newsletter that says, hey, we have some new heels in stock, or we have some new sundresses in stock, that's not relevant to me. That is literally the definition of spam. So understanding who is a male and who is a female, what categories they've purchased from, what departments they've purchased from, and also things like their lifetime spend. Who were our best customers? Simply saying thank you is a hugely valuable strategy, and that will drive a lot of conversions because people understand that they're a good customer. I know that I've bought 6 times from a certain brand. I know that if a company says thank you to me and I've never bought from them, then everyone got that message. So that allows us to do some very relevant things and build profiles, understanding that John is a returning customer. He's purchased shirts and bow ties previously. We could use our proprietary recommendations to recommend those products there based on his not only browsing, but also purchase history. Something also we can do with the recurring, the recommendations tool are what we call recurring automated campaigns. So how many people in here have marketing teams that are just waiting all day to send an email out? They don't have anything else to do all day. No one? So the nice thing about these is we set them up one time, they run in perpetuity, and you never have to touch them. It's a totally dynamic email that goes out where everyone is receiving the same email creative-wise. However, the products contained within will be dynamic based on what that particular customer has purchased and browsed previously. So imagine getting an email every Monday that says, hey, Jennifer, just for you, here's 20 products we thought you might like. They never have to touch that product or that email. It's just going to run, and pretty valuable there. So that is what we call the UPS growth package, and that is actually all I had today.